Chapter 1967. Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen and Yu Linfeng all looked at Nan Gongwu. They nodded and smiled, that's right. Seeing this, Nan Gongwu was stunned for a moment. Then, she laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, I knew that my idea was good. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other and smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang's nervousness and worry quickly dissipated. Previously, she had not been able to think of a good solution, so she was very worried. Her parents had suffered too much these few years. She also hoped that she could save them as soon as possible. After all, one less day of pain and suffering was extremely good. She believed that these few years, every day felt like a year to her parents. She did not know what kind of faith her parents relied on to persevere until now. As their daughter, she only wanted to save her parents as soon as possible and reunite with them. Until now, she did not know what her parents looked like. When they had separated, she was still too young. Thus, she did not have any impression of them. Fortunately, this day was not far away from them. Since we have decided to use explosives, Hongzhuang, from today onwards, you will develop explosives with me. Nan Gongwu's face was filled with excitement. She had wanted to develop explosives with Hongzhuang before. However, after Hongzhuang came to Limitless Palace, she put all her energy into cultivation. She did not want to disturb her. Now, she didn't think that her method would be used in such a way. The Yu clan was not an ordinary clan. If they wanted to have a certain influence in the Yu clan, it would not be an easy task. At the very least, the grade of explosives they needed to use must not be low. If their influence was small, then it would not have any influence on the Yu clan. Hongzhuang and the others' rescue plan would not succeed. Hearing Nan Gongwu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. No problem. From today onwards, I will develop explosives with Master's wife. She didn't have any understanding of explosives, and she couldn't guarantee that she had some talent in this area. However, no matter what, she had to give it a try. Since Ma Em was so interested in this, he believed that Ma Em knew a lot about explosives. She was only helping her master's wife. It would be best if she could achieve better results. Madam Yu, if you don't mind, why don't I research it together with you? At a time like this, every extra bit of strength was extremely important. After all, time waits for no man. If he could be of some help, that would be great. Nan Gongwu smiled and nodded. That would be for the best. Usually, she was the only one doing the research. Now, in addition to Bailey Hongzhuang, there was also Di Beichen, which made the research even better. She had been studying explosives for a long time, so she knew a lot about them. However, developing explosives also required a certain amount of talent. She always felt that the explosives she developed were lacking something. She had heard that Hongzhuang was very accomplished in many areas. Maybe Hongzhuang also had a very good talent in this area. Many times, developing explosives also required a certain amount of imagination. If there was someone to communicate with, she believed that it would be better. Chapter 1968. Nan Gongwu had always had a special fondness for developing explosives. However, there weren't many people in the Xingxian continent who could develop explosives. After all, the majority of cultivators focused their energy on cultivation. Explosives were only a supplementary item. It wasn't that Yu Linfeng didn't want to accompany Nan Gongwu in developing explosives. However, he didn't have any talent in this area. Thus, even though he usually listened to Nan Gongwu's complaints and dissatisfaction, he couldn't do anything about it. Now that they had reached this step, the county magistrate was stunned. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's focus was on developing explosives. As a result, Nan Gongwu wouldn't complain about him anymore. All in all, everything was developing in a good direction. As long as they could save Bailey Hongzhuang's parents, many problems could be solved one by one. The three beasties were also filled with enthusiasm. Although they could only watch from the side when their master was refining pills or drawing inscriptions, they shouldn't be too complicated. However, the explosives shouldn't be too complicated. Perhaps they would be able to do something. Since we've already decided, let's go now. Nan Gongwu's eyes were filled with excitement. Since they had already decided on their next course of action, they didn't need to stay here any longer. The earlier they started, the earlier they could start the rescue. Following Nan Gongwu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other and nodded. Right now, the most important thing for them was to save Lan Yunxiao and Nan Gongwu. Nothing else mattered. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen followed behind Nan Gongwu and headed towards Nan Gongwu's palace. Behind Nan Gongwu's palace, there was a place where Nan Gongwu specialized in developing explosives. Usually, other than Nan Gongwu, no one else would go there. Yu Linfeng did not go with Nan Gongwu and the others. He had to order someone to find someone who could make explosives. Furthermore, this information had to be kept secret. After all, the slightest movement between the major forces would be noticed by others. At that time, the matter of the Yu clan being suddenly attacked would definitely be known by many people. If other people knew that he was looking for the person who developed the explosives, they would easily associate it with him. Actually, he was not afraid of the Yu clan. However, as Bailey Hongzhuang's master, he naturally had to think for Bailey Hongzhuang. Now was not the time to expose himself. When Bailey Hongzhuang walked into the room where Nan Gongwu was developing the explosives, her eyes couldn't help but be filled with amazement. This was truly a well-equipped workshop. Although she didn't know much about explosives, she could tell from the layout of this place and the things that filled it. After seeing this scene, Di Beichen also felt that Nan Gongwu was unusually fond of this aspect. With such a complete set of equipment, it could be seen that Nan Gongwu had spent a lot of effort in this area. "Mistress, you have so many things here." Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. No matter if it was refining pills or drawing inscriptions, there were many things that were needed. However, her arrangement was not as complete as mistress's. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's amazed expressions, Nan Gongwu felt a burst of happiness in her heart. Chapter 1969. Of course. Nan Gongwu's interest was instantly piqued. "I always feel that my cultivation speed is too slow. If I have this explosive, I can throw it at whoever I'm unhappy with. Wouldn't that be much more convenient?" Listening to Nan Gongwu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood why Nan Gongwu liked explosives so much. It turned out that this was the root cause. After being together for such a long time, she had a certain understanding of her master's wife's character. Master's wife's character could be described with 4 words, simple and crude. If you can make a move, don't talk. Therefore, every time Master's wife appeared, she would be in a hurry. However, Master's wife's simplicity and purity was something that many people couldn't achieve. It's indeed a lot more convenient. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Just like what Nan Gongwu said, if the explosive was strong enough and didn't require the use of elemental energy, it would be an excellent method to achieve a strong effect as long as it was thrown out. It was a pity that after the explosive's power reached a certain level, it couldn't be improved anymore. Therefore, most people still put their energy into improving their own cultivation. It wasn't a long-term solution. Even if they spent more time researching, they wouldn't be able to achieve good results. I always feel that the explosive's power can also be improved continuously. Just like how our alchemy skills can also be improved continuously, there are many grades of elixirs. Explosives should also be divided into many grades. Nan Gongwu said her opinion. Many people told her that studying explosives was useless. When a cultivator's strength reached a certain level, explosives wouldn't be able to affect them at all. Nan Gongwu didn't think so. She just felt that there might be other methods that they hadn't discovered yet. Listening to Nan Gongwu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't comment. No one could say that Nan Gongwu's idea was wrong, because there were many things in this world that others didn't know. Not knowing now didn't mean that it was wrong. However, it was not an easy task to research all of this. Perhaps he would be lucky enough to succeed, or perhaps he would never be able to figure it out in his lifetime. These were all possibilities. Hong Zhuang, you and Beichen don't know much about explosives, right? Nan Gongwu asked. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen nodded in unison. Indeed, they did not know about this before. Seeing this, Nan Gongwu was not surprised. She immediately took some books from the workshop and passed them to Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. Take a look at the contents of the book first. The general idea is written in the book. When you have a general understanding of the situation, we will study it together. In the next 2 days, I will make some explosives on my own. I hope they can be of help, Nan Gongwu said slowly. She hoped that someone would have the same hobby as her. However, rescuing Hong Zhuang's parents was such an important matter that it wasn't a joke. If Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen didn't have any knowledge in this area, then she would have to rely on her to develop some powerful explosives. At least she could guarantee that these explosives would cause a stir in the Yu clan. Chapter 1970. Taking the book that Nan Gongwu handed over, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Mistress, I will memorize the contents of this book as soon as possible. Good luck. Nan Gongwu's face was filled with a faint smile. She was full of expectations for Bailey Hongzhuang. She always felt that Bailey Hongzhuang had outstanding achievements in so many aspects. She might be the same in this aspect. After all, talent was extremely important. Yu Linfeng was also an extremely intelligent person. However, he did not have any achievements in explosives. This did not mean that he was not good enough. Next, Bailey Hongzhuang saw that Nan Gongwu was concentrating on studying explosives. The serious Nan Gongwu was completely different from her usual self. It was as if at this moment, her eyes were only focused on the raw materials for making explosives. Looking at Nan Gongwu like this, Bailey Hongzhuang already understood her focus on explosives. If she did not like it very much, she would never show such a focused and addicted look. It was just like when she was studying medicine. She had put all her attention on it and nothing could affect her. After seeing Nan Gongwu's focused and serious look, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. In the end, they decided to go back first and not disturb Nan Gongwu. After all, they could not do anything to help now. Even if they stood by the side, they would not be of any use. After Bailey Hongzhuang returned to her bedchamber, she began to read the contents related to explosives seriously. There were not many books. As long as she calmed down and read, it would not take too long to finish reading. Xiao He and Xiao Bai sat on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and read seriously with Bailey Hongzhuang. They were also somewhat interested in explosives. Baishir sat next to Di Beichen to study together. He also hoped that he could help. At night, Di Beichen finally decided to return to Tiangang's sect by himself. He needed to tell his master about this plan so that his master could help them make a better judgment. After all, Mu Lingbing was his master's daughter. His master would definitely care about her. In this regard, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded in agreement. She also felt that it was better for Di Beichen to explain this matter properly. Perhaps, his grandfather would have a better idea. Or perhaps, his grandfather would directly come to Limitless Palace. Right now, she had to research explosives with her master's wife, so she couldn't leave. After Di Beichen left, Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasts focused on reading about explosives. She needed to engrave all of this in her heart before she could think of a solution with her mistress. She could conclude that Shirmu had been researching explosives for so long and wanted someone to communicate with her. She must have encountered a bottleneck. If that wasn't the case, Master's wife wouldn't be so anxious. Bottlenecks, whether in cultivation or other aspects, were an extremely torturous existence. If one could not break through the bottleneck, then they would be stagnant. In the next 3 days, Bailey Hongzhuang focused all her energy on reading. The three beasts knew how important this matter was. Hence, they did not disturb Bailey Hongzhuang. Instead, they tried their best to engrave all of this in their hearts. Nangong Wu also knew that Bailey Hongzhuang must be reading, so she did not look for Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 1971. Yu Linfeng felt a little helpless as he looked at Nangong Wu's serious and persistent look. Nangong Wu was usually very interested in developing explosives, and now she had even more reason to continue her research. Although he was a little worried about Nangong Wu, he did not stop her. After all, this matter was very important. With Yu Xiqing's status in the Yu family, ordinary explosives would not be able to attract her. But to create an explosive that even Yu Xiqing had to pay attention to, that wasn't a simple matter. Perhaps, they would have to put in more effort in this aspect. After 3 days, Bailey Hongzhuang finally finished reading all the books. Originally, she did not know anything about developing explosives, but after reading so many books, she understood quite a lot. At least, she now understood how to create ordinary explosives. However, if she wanted to make a powerful explosive, she still needed to know more about it. Should I go and learn from Mistress now? Bailey Hongzhuang thought and said. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasties could not help but look at each other and said, "Master, you haven't rested for 3 days and 3 nights. You should take a rest first." Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang working so hard, the three beasties felt their hearts ache. They understood that their master wanted to save her parents, but they could not be too anxious in this situation. If their master did not take good care of herself and something happened to her, it would be worse. Before Di Beichen left, he had specially instructed them to take good care of their master. With Di Beichen's understanding of their master, he had already predicted that Bailey Hongzhuang would work hard day and night. "I'm in a good condition now. There's no problem." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She had waited for so long and finally heard news about her parents. She only wished that she could end her parents' pain as soon as possible. "Master, you don't seem to be in good spirits," Xiao He said with a frown. Xiao Bai quickly followed up, "Master, if you're not in the right state of mind and something dangerous happens during the process of developing the explosives, that would be terrible. In my opinion, it would be better for you to rest for a while and go there full of energy. The palace mistress will be happier to see you." "Master, you should rest for a while," White Lion said. Listening to the advice of the three beasts, Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment. She only felt that the words of the three beasts had some truth to them. She didn't really care about herself. But, presumably, Mistress was also working hard for her. If she went there in high spirits, Mistress would be even happier. On the other hand, if his mental state was not good, it would affect his master's wife. That would be bad. "I'll rest for a while. You guys should rest too. You must be tired after these 3 days." Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was gentle. In the 3 days that she had been reading, the three beasts had been studying by her side and had never complained. 3 days and 3 nights without rest would indeed be a little tiring. Presumably, the three beasts were the same. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had agreed, the three beasts' eyes lit up with excitement. "Master, let's rest together. We'll look for the palace mistress after we wake up," White Lion said with a smile. Chapter 1972. Bailey Hongzhuang had fallen into a deep sleep not long after she had closed her eyes. Over the past 3 days, she had been trying her best to memorize the contents of the book. At the same time that she was forcing herself to memorize the contents, the consumption of her spiritual energy was not small either. Hence, when she closed her eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang felt her head sink and a wave of exhaustion washed over her. The three beasts situation was not any better than Bailey Hongzhuang's. On the contrary, they were in a worse state. After all, they did not have Bailey Hongzhuang's abnormal spiritual energy. Hence, over the past 3 days, their heads had become as heavy as 1,000 caddies. Bailey Hongzhuang was resting in a daze when suddenly, a strand of spiritual energy was quietly drawn into the chaos ring and entered it. Bailey Hongzhuang felt as if she was dreaming. She had entered the chaos ring and a new stone room had appeared in the chaos ring. As she opened the door to the stone room, she saw that the situation in the stone room was just like Nangong Wu's explosives workshop. It was fully equipped. The situation was exactly the same as the first time Bailey Hongzhuang had entered the inscription stone room. There was even a middle-aged man who was explaining the important points of making explosives and demonstrating how to make explosives. When Bailey Hongzhuang woke up from this dream, she could not help but laugh. She really dreamed about what she thought about during the day. If the chaos ring really had such a stone room, how great would that be? Now, she really hoped that she would have the chance to learn how to make explosives. If she was really accomplished in this area, she would not mind throwing a few more at the Yu family. Now, she only hoped that the explosives that Mistress had made would have such an effect. Otherwise, the rescue mission would be really difficult. When Bailey Hongzhuang woke up, she saw the three beasts sleeping soundly next to her and her gaze softened. The three beasts had been accompanying her for the past 3 days. Speaking of which, they were really very concerned about her. Since the three beasts had yet to wake up, Bailey Hongzhuang hesitated for a moment. If she left just like that, the three beasts would definitely be very depressed when they woke up. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but think of the dream she had. Although she knew it was a dream, the scene in the dream was too real. She also wanted to take a look inside the chaos ring. Now that her strength had improved to a certain extent, it was reasonable to say that a new door to the stone room should be opened. In the next instant, Bailey Hongzhuang entered the chaos ring. Every time a new door opened in the chaos ring, it would be of great help to her. If it weren't for the chaos ring, she wouldn't have been able to enrich herself like this. Therefore, she had been looking forward to the opening of the new stone room. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang entered the chaos ring, she was surprised to find that there really was a door to a stone room that had opened. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes couldn't help but be filled with excitement. In her line of sight, the appearance of the stone room's door was exactly the same as it had been in her dream. I wonder what's inside. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes sparkled with anticipation. She really wanted to know what was inside. If it really was an explosives workshop, that was simply impossible, right? Chapter 1973. This was because the scene in front of her eyes was exactly the same as what Bailey Hongzhuang had seen in her dreams. The familiar scene, the neatly arranged explosives workshop. Bailey Hongzhuang had thought that Nangong Wu's explosives workshop already had everything she needed. However, the explosives workshop in front of her eyes was undoubtedly larger than Nangong Wu's, and it was even more complete. Besides a few things that she could recognize, there were also many things that she could not recognize. This was simply too shocking. Oh my God, Bailey Hongzhuang's face was filled with shock, followed by a thick sense of surprise. She had never thought that her wish would come true. She had originally hoped that the Chaos Ring would teach her how to make explosives. This was because according to her understanding of the Chaos Ring, the things inside were often extremely comprehensive, and were much stronger than the things in the outside world. Just like inscription techniques, she had never come into contact with inscription techniques in her previous life, and did not have much understanding of inscription techniques. However, after studying inscription techniques in the Chaos Ring for a period of time, she had interacted with the inscription masters of the Xingxian continent and discovered that her inscription techniques were already quite good. Just from this point alone, she could judge the power of the Chaos Ring. However, she had never thought that when she was so anxious, the Chaos Ring would send charcoal in snowy weather and provide her with such timely help. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but sigh. The Chaos Ring was truly a divine tool. Ordinary things simply could not be compared with such a divine tool. In the explosives workshop, a middle-aged uncle was configuring and explaining the uses of the explosives. The uncle's face was covered with a full beard, revealing a bit of the vicissitudes of life. He looked at the explosives with an indescribable focus. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood that this uncle was very good at configuring explosives. As Bailey Hongzhuang walked closer and sat down in front of the middle-aged uncle, the uncle's gaze fell upon Bailey Hongzhuang. Explosives are a type of weapon. Many people think that the power of explosives is not great enough. Besides causing harm to the common people, as long as a cultivator's strength is strong enough, they will be able to escape from the power of explosives. However, this is not the case. Those people don't understand explosives at all. That's why they said such things. Explosives have many powerful aspects. As long as you are capable enough, you can definitely hurt a powerful cultivator. If a cultivator wanted to use a martial technique, they would need to form hand seals, but explosives could be used instantly. Just from this point alone, we can see how powerful the explosives are. The man explained everything about explosives to Bailey Hongzhuang, a layman. Bailey Hongzhuang listened attentively. She found that the uncle in front of her was talking about the same thing as the master's wife. Master's wife also said that there should be many grades of explosives. It was not that the explosives themselves were not powerful enough to affect powerful cultivators. It was because the people who developed the explosives were not strong enough, and the level of the explosives they made was not high enough, so it could not affect them. In fact, explosives were also divided into different grades. The explosives developed by some geniuses would often have an incomparably powerful influence. Bailey Hongzhuang listened attentively to the uncle's narration and committed the important information to memory. Chapter 1974. Bailey Hongzhuang listened attentively to the uncle's introduction. Compared to reading a book, learning by example was much faster. Moreover, the Chaos Ring was mysterious, and the way the uncle introduced it was concise and comprehensive. As long as it was something important, he would specifically remind Bailey Hongzhuang to remember it. If it was something unimportant, he would directly skip over it, so that Bailey Hongzhuang did not have to remember it at all. When Bailey Hongzhuang had read the book before, she only felt that the contents of the book were rather muddled. However, she had never come into contact with explosives before, so she could not identify these things. She could only remember everything in her heart. She was waiting to learn from her master's wife, so that she could study properly. Bailey Hongzhuang memorized the important contents one by one. Her spiritual power was already very outstanding, and her memory was also very good. With the two combined, Bailey Hongzhuang memorized the knowledge very quickly. Just like when she had first come into contact with inscriptions, although the situation of explosives was not as complicated as inscriptions, it was still not simple. This was because the amount of each ingredient would affect the effect of the explosives. If the wrong amount was placed, it could lead to injuries. Speaking of alchemy, inscription, and explosives, the explosives technique was the most dangerous of them all. Therefore, when developing explosives, one needed to be 100% careful. Otherwise, if there were any problems, it could lead to injuries. In the process of learning, Bailey Hongzhuang understood that there were not many people in the Xingxian continent who understood explosives, and there were even fewer people who were good at explosives. However, it was clear that the middle-aged uncle in front of her was extremely good at explosives. Bailey Hongzhuang forgot about the time when she started learning, and she greedily absorbed the knowledge. Obviously, learning from this uncle would increase their efficiency by a lot. Master's wife must be helping to develop explosives now, so it was also very good for her to learn more here. Perhaps, in a short period of time, she would not be able to create powerful explosives, but she could share some ideas with Master's wife. In this way, there was hope for all of this. If possible, Bailey Hongzhuang hoped that Master's wife could come to the Chaos Ring with her. With Nangong Wu's obsession with explosives, she would definitely be overjoyed if she saw this middle-aged man. Unfortunately, Nangong Wu could not enter. Bailey Hongzhuang had already tried this before. After telling Di Beichen the secret of the Chaos Ring, she had intended to let Di Beichen understand it as well. If Di Beichen was interested, then it would be great if he could learn some inscription techniques. However, Di Beichen could not enter at all. She also felt that this was very strange. However, Di Beichen had tried many times. Even when Bailey Hongzhuang opened the door, Di Beichen could only see a blank space. However, the three beasts could see it. After thinking about it, Bailey Hongzhuang and others felt that this must be the owner of the Chaos Ring was Bailey Hongzhuang, so many things could only be used by Bailey Hongzhuang. Although the three beasts could see the situation inside, they had no feeling for this thing and could not learn it. Speaking of which, the only person who could use this was Bailey Hongzhuang. Just like this demon-calling scripture, Bailey Hongzhuang could not tell its contents to other cultivators. Therefore, in this situation, Master's wife obviously could not learn it. Chapter 1975. When the three beasties awoke, they were stunned. They never thought that their master would disappear after a short nap. How long have we been asleep? Xiao He was dumbfounded. She had felt dizzy after she had closed her eyes. Now that she had woken up, she felt much more comfortable. However, she did not know how long she had slept for. The three beasties stared at each other as they listened to Xiao He's explanation. In reality, none of them knew how long they had slept. Could it be that Master has gone to the palace mistress's place? White Lion asked. He had only rested after seeing that his master had rested. However, his master's spiritual power was extremely powerful, so her recovery time should be shorter than theirs. Perhaps Master had noticed that they showed no signs of waking up, so she had left first. Hearing White Lion's words, Xiao He and Xiao Bai immediately straightened their backs. If that was really the case, they should hurry and find their master. Master would not be in any danger in the limitless palace. However, they would only feel at ease if they were by Master's side. Just as the three beasties were about to set off for the explosives workshop, a faint light suddenly appeared in their line of sight. The three beasties' eyes lit up. Isn't that the Chaos Ring? Master must have entered the Chaos Ring. White Lion immediately understood. This was the same situation when they had gone to the desert world on a daily basis. Since Master had entered the desert world, the Chaos Ring had revealed itself. The three beasties looked at each other and smiled. They then entered the Chaos Ring together. When the three beasties arrived at the Chaos Ring, they did not see Bailey Hongzhuang, so they began to search for her. Judging by the situation, Master must have stayed in the Chaos Ring for quite some time. However, there's no place in the Chaos Ring for her to go. Xiao He frowned. Although the Chaos Ring was large, there were only so many places they could go on a daily basis. Master's heart was now on the explosives. What was she doing in the Chaos Ring? Xiao Bai's eyes lit up. Perhaps a new door to the stone chamber has been opened. It's been quite some time since the last time. It's time to open it. As soon as he said this, Xiao He and Bai Shi looked at each other with anticipation in their eyes. The three beasts were immediately interested in the direction of the stone room. After searching for a while, sure enough, they saw the figure of Bailey Hongzhuang. Seeing that the three beasts had woken up, a smile appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's face. Have you rested well? The three beasts nodded repeatedly, but now their focus had shifted to the explosives workshop in front of them. The moment they opened the door to the stone room, they understood why their master had stayed here for so long. Oh my God, this chaos ring is just too miraculous. It knows that Master wants to develop explosives, so it created a stone room to teach Master how to make explosives. While White Lion was amazed, it also felt excited. This was extremely important to its current master. Xiao He and Xiao Bai also couldn't help but feel excited. This was definitely another piece of good news after finding out the whereabouts of their master's parents. The Chaos Ring is indeed a divine weapon. It understands Master's thoughts too well. Xiao He smiled. Chapter 1976. Bailey Hongzhuang stayed in the Chaos Ring for 2 days until she understood a little more. Only then did she go to Nangong Wu's explosives workshop. After all, she only took a few books back to read a few days ago. If there was no news after that, the master's wife would probably feel strange. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang came to Nangong Wu's explosives workshop, she saw Nangong Wu's busy figure. Compared to her usual bright and moving appearance, Nangong Wu was undoubtedly a bit more embarrassed at the moment. Her bright red dress was dyed with a few smears of black. Her hair also revealed a bit of embarrassment. Her bright and dazzling face was a bit more pitch black. Obviously, these were the powder left behind when making explosives. Just from Nangong Wu's constantly busy appearance, it could be seen that in these few days, she had never stopped to rest. Looking at Nangong Wu like this, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was a bit touched. If it wasn't for her, Nangong Wu wouldn't need to be so busy. Although this was Nangong Wu's hobby, such a high-intensity development was probably very rare. At this moment, in the explosives workshop, in addition to Nangong Wu, there were a few more strangers that Bailey Hongzhuang had never seen before. However, after thinking carefully, Bailey Hongzhuang already knew that these people must have been invited by the master. She only saw Nangong Wu and these people discussing the method of explosives. Sometimes the discussion was very intense. Looking at Nangong Wu like this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but have a bit of smile in her eyes. Sure enough, the master's wife had a lively appearance when discussing things. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang appear, Nangong Wu's face had a smile for a moment. Hongzhuang, you're here. Nangong Wu quickly walked in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and pulled Bailey Hongzhuang into the pharmacy workshop. Why didn't you call me when you came? After the group of people who studied explosives in the explosives workshop saw Nangong Wu's change of expression, their eyes were constantly changing. One had to know that Nangong Wu was extremely fierce when she was arguing with them just a second ago. In an instant, she had turned into an amiable and approachable person. This change was truly too great. I saw that you were busy, so I didn't disturb you. Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. I'm discussing with them how to make a powerful explosive, but there is no definite result so far. Nangong Wu was a little helpless. Although she was usually very interested in this aspect and made a lot of explosives, she didn't have enough confidence in such a powerful explosive. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. She also heard the discussion between Nangong Wu and others just now. It was indeed not an easy thing to make such an explosive. The Yu family had a lot of people. If the explosive was not powerful enough, it would not have any impact at all. She didn't have any understanding of explosives before, so she didn't think it was difficult. However, after learning about explosives from the uncle in the Chaos Ring in these 2 days, she understood that all of this was not so easy. However, the content that the uncle said also gave her some hope. Explosives of that level did exist, and explosives even more powerful than that also existed. It was just that this needed to test their ability to make explosives and the materials. Chapter 1977. The middle-aged uncle was patiently guiding her, and she was extremely serious in her studies. However, she would still need some time to study like this. However, she believed that as long as she put her heart into it, it wouldn't take too long. Have you finished reading the books I gave you? Nan Gongwu asked. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and smiled. Yes, I've finished reading them. That's good. Since you've finished reading them, you must have a certain understanding of explosives. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She was no longer a layman, but she still didn't know much about the manufacturing process. I have to discuss the manufacturing method with them first. Take a rest first, or go back first. I'll find you later. Nan Gongwu thought for a moment before slowly speaking. She had been researching on her own for the past few days. However, the results weren't very good. It wasn't until this morning that the people Yu Linfeng invited arrived, so she was discussing the manufacturing method with them. Right now, she didn't have the time to teach Bailey Hongzhuang. Moreover, there were so many people in the explosives workshop, so Hongzhuang wouldn't understand even if she stayed here. She was very clear that if Hongzhuang didn't understand, she would feel very awkward if she stayed here. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Nan Gongwu's expression and understood her thoughts. Alright, Shirmu. Then I'll go back first. You must have been reading books without rest these past few days. Go back and rest well. Nan Gongwu's eyes revealed a trace of concern. From Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, she could tell that Hongzhuang must have been busy reading books these past few days. Thus, she faintly revealed her exhaustion. Hongzhuang's background was so pitiful. The matter of Lan Yunxiao and his wife must have been pressing down on Hongzhuang's heart. Now that there was finally an opportunity, Hongzhuang's impatience could be imagined. Mistress, I see that you are more tired than I am. You should rest well. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Nan Gongwu with concern and heartache. It was normal for her to be nervous and worried when her parents were in such a situation. But Mistress was also worried about her, so she felt even more apologetic. Ever since he entered the Chaos Ring, he had been learning from the middle-aged man for the past 2 days without any rest. But before he entered the primal chaos world, at least he rested for a while. However, judging from Nan Gongwu's current situation, it was obvious that she had not rested for the past few days. Although Nan Gongwu's cultivation was higher than hers, but if she didn't rest for a long time, her body wouldn't be able to take it. Although she hoped to save her parents as soon as possible, she didn't want her teacher's wife to be so tired because of her. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Nan Gongwu was startled and looked a bit embarrassed. I'm usually like this, so I'm already used to it. You don't need to take it to heart. Nan Gongwu smiled. She hoped that she could help Hongzhuang and quickly save Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunxiao. However, she also didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to have more psychological burdens. Hearing Nan Gongwu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang felt even more moved. Mistress, I know that everything you are doing is for my own good, but if you tire yourself out because of this, I will feel even more guilty. Chapter 1978. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's sincere look, Nan Gongwu was also very touched. She immediately smiled and said, I understand. I will go back and rest after I finish discussing with them. Hearing Nan Gongwu's answer, Bailey Hongzhuang was relieved. If the master's wife was sick because of her, then she would feel the most sorry and would be full of guilt to her master. Hongzhuang, then you should cultivate by yourself for the next 2 days. Nan Gongwu's face was filled with a bright smile. After I finish discussing with them, I will go back and rest. Come find me in 2. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Okay, master's wife. Before Bailey Hongzhuang left, she also took a few books from Nan Gongwu's explosives workshop. She had been learning about explosives from the middle-aged uncle these days. When she came to Nan Gongwu in a few days, she believed that she had made some progress. If she only read a few books and had such understanding, Nan Gongwu would be surprised. Correspondingly, if she read more books, her performance would not be too strange when the time came. Nan Gongwu also felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's actions were very normal. After all, this matter was Bailey Hongzhuang's own matter. She must be very anxious. At this moment it was very normal for her to be eager to know the relevant information. Not long after Bailey Hongzhuang walked out of the explosives workshop, she saw Yu Linfeng. When Yu Linfeng saw Bailey Hongzhuang leave, his eyes were filled with doubts. "Hongzhuang, is your master's wife not in the explosives workshop?" Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly and said, "Master's wife is discussing with others about making explosives. I can't help with anything now, so I left first." Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Yu Linfeng nodded slightly, his eyes filled with understanding. "Go back and have a good rest. You must have worked hard these days," Yu Linfeng said with concern. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't say much. From Yu Linfeng's attitude, she could tell that he definitely wanted to find Shirmu. Master's wife hadn't rested for so many days. Given how much Master cared for her, he must be very worried. Master's wife said that she would go back to rest after she finished discussing with those people about making explosives. Bailey Hongzhuang left behind a sentence and walked towards the direction of the palace. The three beasts followed behind her. In fact, the three beasts also hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to stay in the chaos ring for a little longer. With Master's intelligence and wisdom, no matter what he learns, he will definitely succeed. It would just take a bit more time. To Master now, the most important thing was time. If she could stay in the chaos ring, they believed that her improvement would be the fastest. However, from the current situation, Nan Gongwu obviously didn't have time to teach Master during this period of time. Therefore, Master still had plenty of time. Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts were the same as the three beasts. She hadn't told Master and Shirmu about the chaos ring yet. Therefore, she had to keep it a secret for the time being. After returning to the palace, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately entered the chaos ring. Chapter 1979. After all, the secret of the chaos ring was extremely important. Now, once the owner enters the primordial chaos ring, the primordial chaos ring will reveal itself. If others were to find out about this, it would be very troublesome. Bailey Hongzhuang entered the stone room and continued to learn from the middle-aged man. When the middle-aged man saw Bailey Hongzhuang appear, he continued to teach her what he had discussed with Bailey Hongzhuang the last time. Bailey Hongzhuang listened carefully to the middle-aged man's every word and committed it to memory. In the following period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang continued to learn from the middle-aged man. Only when she was too exhausted would she enter into a state of cultivation and cultivate properly. However, in the current situation, cultivation was not the most important thing. Therefore, once Bailey Hongzhuang had recovered, she would enter the chaos ring to learn again. When the three beasts saw how serious Bailey Hongzhuang was, they did not want to cause any more trouble for Bailey Hongzhuang. In the process of learning, Bailey Hongzhuang's understanding of the subject had also improved by leaps and bounds. She had gone from being completely ignorant to understanding so much now. This improvement could not be said to be small. Although Bailey Hongzhuang had not begun to develop explosives on her own, she already had a comprehensive understanding of explosives. She only needed to give it a try. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang was still cultivating in the chaos ring when Baishir's voice suddenly sounded in Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. "Master, the palace mistress is here." Hearing Baishir's voice, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately exited the chaos ring. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang exited the chaos ring, Nan Gongwu's figure appeared in her line of sight. "Hongzhuang, how's your reading these past few days?" Nan Gongwu's face was rippling with a faint smile. Her bright and moving face was rosy and enchanting. Obviously, Nan Gongwu had just rested, so she came to look for Bailey Hongzhuang. Looking at Nan Gongwu like this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with a smile. "Mistress, you're here," Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. "I've finished reading the contents of the book." Hearing this, Nan Gongwu nodded in satisfaction. "In that case, do you want to study explosives with me today?" Nan Gongwu asked. However, she felt that it would be very difficult for Bailey Hongzhuang to have a certain level of achievement in the art of explosives before Bailey Hongzhuang's parents were rescued. However, it was also a good opportunity for Bailey Hongzhuang to have a certain understanding of this aspect. "Okay," Bailey Hongzhuang said immediately. She had learned a lot in the Chaos Ring, but until now, she had not tried to make explosives with her own hands. If she did not try it herself, even if she knew a lot in theory, it would not be of much use. Now that she was going to the explosives workshop with Mistress, she could try to develop it herself. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's excited look, Nan Gongwu was very happy. She felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was not only because Bailey Hongzhuang was anxious to rescue her parents, but also because Bailey Hongzhuang was interested in explosives. "Since you want to go too, let's not delay. Let's go," Nan Gongwu said with a smile. Chapter 1980. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Nan Gongwu went to the explosives workshop, Di Beichen also rushed to Tiangang sect. In the process of rushing, Di Beichen had already caught up with Heimu, so Heimu had not reported this matter to Si Tuyen. After knowing that Di Beichen had returned alone, Si Tuyen's eyes were filled with doubt. He knew that Di Beichen accompanied Bailey Hongzhuang to Wuji Palace this time. Logically speaking, they should have returned together. Why did Di Beichen come back alone now? Without waiting for Si Tuyen to look for Di Beichen had already gone directly to Si Tuyen's palace. "Master." After seeing Si Tuyen, Di Beichen bowed deeply. Seeing this, Si Tuyen smiled and waved his hand. He had always been extremely satisfied with Di Beichen as his disciple and even treated him as his own grandson. What's more, Di Beichen now had another identity, which was his grandson-in-law. This relationship could be said to be extremely close. "Get up, why did you come back first? Why didn't Hongzhuang come back with you?" Si Tuyen asked aloud. Seeing this, Di Beichen went straight to the point and said, "Master, Shirtian Tower has sent back news." As Di Beichen's voice fell, Si Tuyen's expression suddenly changed, and his eyes instantly froze. "You said Shirtian Tower sent back news?" Si Tuyen's voice trembled a little. He had always been very concerned about Mu Lingbing's news, but he had waited for so long without any news, so he had been very anxious. If he had not asked Shirtian Tower to investigate this news, he would have already taken action himself. However, with his complicated relationship with Yu Siqing, if he went, Yu Siqing would be even more unfavorable to them. It was precisely because of this that he had been restraining his impulse and did not go to look for her. Now that he suddenly heard the news from Shirtian Tower, he could not help but feel a little nervous. At this moment, Si Tuyen's mood was the same as Bailey Hongzhuang's when she first found out about this. He hoped this was good news, but he was worried that this good news would become bad news. If this was really bad news, then he would rather never know this news. Di Beichen noticed the change in Si Tuyen's expression and immediately nodded and said, "Yes, Shirtian Tower has found the location of Hongzhuang's parents." Di Beichen knew that Si Tuyen's mood was complicated at the moment, so he directly told Si Tuyen the final result, saving Si Tuyen from more worries. Sure enough, after hearing Di Beichen's words, Si Tuyen's heart, which had been hanging in the air, also relaxed. "Where are they being held captive?" Si Tuyen asked. When he thought about how his daughter and son-in-law had been imprisoned for so many years, his heart couldn't help but twitch. If Mu Jins knew about this, she would definitely be in more pain than him. In the past, she had been kept in the dark and didn't know about this at all, so after so many years. Since Mu Lingbing was married to Lan Yunxiao, then Mu Jin's must know about this matter. Thinking of this, Si Tuyen's mood became even more complicated. If Mu Jin's knew about this matter, then she definitely wouldn't have ignored it for so many years. However, until now, he had not seen Mu Jin's, nor had he heard any news about her. Chapter 1981. Si Tuyen was really worried. He had searched for so many years without any results. Could it be that Mu Jin's had completely disappeared? Although he felt that this possibility was constantly increasing in his mind, Si Tuyen was still unwilling to believe it. In this life, other than Mu Jin's, there was no one else in his heart. If something happened to Mu Jin's, then he really had no hope in this life. However, in this situation, the most important thing was to rescue Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing. He had never fulfilled any of his responsibilities as a father to his daughter. Now, he only hoped that he had a chance to make up for it. Uncle and aunt have always been imprisoned in the dungeon under Yu Siqing's residence. Di Beichen told Si Tuyen the truth. Now that they knew more and more, his hatred for Yu Siqing grew. Ever since he was young, he had seen many disgusting cultivators. However, the one he hated the most was Yu Siqing. Following Di Beichen's words, Si Tuyen's face instantly turned ugly. His deep, dark eyes were filled with hatred and disgust. A strong killing intent exploded from Si Tuyen's heart. He originally wanted to kill Yu Siqing, but because Yu Siqing knew many things, perhaps it was his only chance to find Mu Jin's, so although he hated her, he didn't kill her. However, Yu Siqing had imprisoned his daughter for so many years. More than 10 years. Yu Siqing had imprisoned them all this time. The last time he went to the Yu clan, he was already very close to his daughter, but for some reason, he left just like that. An indescribable pain and regret spread in Si Tuyen's heart. If he had known about this earlier, his daughter wouldn't have suffered so much. Yu Siqing had always stayed in her residence and rarely left. It was because of this that it was very difficult for us to investigate. The Heaven Slaughter Pavilion also spent a lot of effort to confirm the final location. Di Beichen felt somewhat helpless. In the past, he had also thought of this possibility. However, he had never been able to confirm it. Yu Siqing rarely left, and they could not alert the other members of the Yu clan. Hence, they had been trying to gather information from the other members of the Yu clan. However, in the end, no definite results were obtained. Yu Siqing's personality was extremely strange, and she did not have good relationships with others. Even in the entire Yu clan, not many people had much contact with Yu Siqing. As a result, their investigation became even more difficult. Damned Yu Siqing! Si Tuyen clenched his right fist and slammed it on the coffee table. Bang! The tea table collapsed and turned into nothingness. I must kill this vicious woman. Even with Si Tuyen's indifference, he could not help but gnash his teeth at this moment. If it wasn't for Yu Siqing's interference all these years, how could he have ended up in such a situation? He should have had a very good family. No matter if it was Mu Jin's, Mu Lingbing, Lan Yunxiao, or Hong Zhuang, none of them would have been able to endure such pain. He was the one who started all these mistakes, so he wanted to personally deal with the main culprit. Looking at Si Tuyen's angry appearance, Di Beichen was also very understanding. Chapter 1982. Master, that Yu Siqing is extremely cunning. If you go directly to Yu Siqing to take her life, she will definitely realize that something is wrong. Once the Yu clan is attracted, things will become difficult. If you don't succeed, then uncle and auntie will be in danger. Di Beichen said in a low voice. If it was possible, he also hoped to take Yu Siqing's life directly. However, according to their understanding of Yu Siqing would not easily leave the Yu clan's territory. In this way, the situation would not be so easy to solve. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Si Tu Yen also calmed down. He thought carefully and understood that Di Beichen's words were indeed reasonable. I finally understand why Yu Siqing always stayed within a certain range when I went to look for her. I'm afraid, this is also the reason. Di Beichen nodded slightly. For this matter, Hong Zhuang and I have discussed with Palace Master Yu and his wife and decided to use explosives. Explosives? Si Tu Yen frowned slightly. Obviously, he did not expect them to choose such a method. That's right, this is the Palace Master's wife's idea. Di Beichen slowly told Si Tu Yen the whole plan. This matter was extremely important to Si Tu Yen, and Si Tu Yen might have a better idea. After Si Tu Yen understood the whole plan, he pondered for a moment and nodded. This is also a good idea, but ordinary explosives do not have enough power. Si Tu Yen also had a certain understanding of explosives, but because the power of explosives was limited to a certain range, it did not have any effect on stronger cultivators, so he did not pay too much attention to it. However, in terms of movement, the movement of explosives had always been very big, and it did have the effect of attracting people's attention. Di Beichen's expression was also filled with worry. Palace Master's wife has always been very knowledgeable about explosives. Now, Hong Zhuang is staying in Limitless Palace to discuss this matter with Palace Master's wife. Palace Master Yu has also found an expert in this field, but as for the final result, we are not sure. Hearing this, Si Tu Yen nodded slightly. At present, as long as they could make a powerful explosive, this method would work. If they couldn't produce it, then they would have to think of other ways. Give me some time to think about this matter. Determination filled Si Tu Yan's eyes. No matter what, he had to rescue Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao this time. They had been imprisoned for so many years. With Yu Siqing's hatred for him, Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao must have suffered a lot. When he thought of this, Si Tu Yen felt extremely guilty. He was the one who had made all these mistakes, yet his junior had to bear the consequences for him. This feeling made him even more uncomfortable. All right, Master. Let's think of a better way, Di Beichen said. For such a serious matter, they had to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Si Tu Yen and Di Beichen looked at each other, their eyes filled with determination. Bailey Hongzhuang followed Nangong Wu to the explosives workshop. Compared to the first time she came to the explosives workshop a few days ago, she knew nothing about it. Now, she already knew what these materials were. She was able to distinguish them, which was undoubtedly a great improvement. Chapter 1983. Nangong Wu had a bright smile on her face. Bailey Hongzhuang had read a lot of books these days and they had introduced a lot of relevant information. Of course, Bailey Hongzhuang could not grasp too much just by relying on the contents of the books. However, Nangong Wu still wanted to test Bailey Hongzhuang. She wanted to know if Bailey Hongzhuang had any talent in explosives. Talent was a very wonderful thing. As long as a cultivator had talent, they would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort when learning about explosives. She hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang would have talent. Now, she only needed to test her a little and she would be able to see how talented Bailey Hongzhuang was in this area. Thinking back, when she first came into contact with explosives, she had a special liking for them. She could even remember some of the special materials very clearly. It was because of this that she discovered that she had a special talent in explosives. Looking at Nangong Wu's smile, Bailey Hongzhuang understood that Nangong Wu wanted to test her. A faint smile appeared on her delicate and charming face. If she only relied on the contents of the books before, she did not have much knowledge. However, after studying in the Chaos Ring for the past few days, she had gained quite a bit of understanding of it. Mistress, this is the flame flower. Bailey Hongzhuang pointed at the bright red flower beside her and smiled. Hearing that, Nangong Wu smiled and nodded. That's right, this is the flame flower. What kind of effect does it have? The flame flower's attribute is explosive. After it is developed into powder and added a little when making explosives, the power of the explosives will increase by a lot. However, because its attribute is so violent, you have to be extra careful when you touch the flame flower. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Nangong Wu's eyes brightened. She remembered that in the books she gave Bailey Hongzhuang, there were records of the flame flower. But she did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to remember it so clearly. What about this one? Nangong Wu asked as she pointed at a gray stone at the side. This stone was gray in color and was very inconspicuous. If it wasn't placed in this explosives workshop and was placed somewhere else, it wouldn't be noticed at all. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell on the rock that Nangong Wu was pointing at, and the corners of her lips slowly lifted into a smile. This is limestone. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile was firm, her voice neither slow nor slow. When the middle-aged man in the chaos ring was teaching her, he had asked her to recognize all the materials. Therefore, not only did she remember the appearance of these materials, but she also remembered their attributes and effects clearly. After all, sharpening a knife would not delay the work of cutting firewood. There were many things that needed to be learned from memorizing the materials. If one could not even memorize the materials, then wanting to make explosives was simply a pipe dream. Just like when she first learned medicine, she did not immediately start learning to diagnose. Instead, she started by memorizing the medicinal materials and understanding the properties of the medicinal materials. Only after memorizing the properties of the medicinal materials, when learning to diagnose people's illness, would it have twice the effect with half the effort. The attribute of limestone is also explosive, but it belongs to the opposite type of the flame flower. Chapter 1984. When Bailey Hongzhuang was talking about the characteristics of the limestone, her expression was extremely calm, as if everything was already in her mind, without the slightest bit of nervousness and apprehension. When Nangong Wu saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was so proficient in describing the effects of the limestone, her eyes couldn't help but be filled with a touch of surprise. Although she knew that this matter was related to the safety of Bailey Hongzhuang's parents, Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely be extremely attentive and serious when reading this book, but she didn't even think for a moment and directly said the results, which was really a little surprising. Then what about this? Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang understood so clearly, Nangong Wu also decided to test Bailey Hongzhuang properly. She wanted to know how much Bailey Hongzhuang had grasped. After all, the more Bailey Hongzhuang knew, the more she didn't need to repeat the content to Bailey Hongzhuang again, which could also save a lot of time. Facing Nangong Wu's questions, Bailey Hongzhuang explained the attributes and effects of these materials one by one. Recently, she had been remembering the names, characteristics and attributes of these medicinal materials. One must know that the middle-aged uncle in the chaotic world was not a person to be trifled with. If she didn't remember it and couldn't answer the middle-aged uncle's questions well, the middle-aged uncle would give her a certain punishment. This kind of punishment was not pleasant, so in order to avoid such a punishment and to save her parents, Bailey Hongzhuang could be said to be extremely serious in recording everything. Nangong Wu asked about several materials in a row, and Bailey Hongzhuang answered them all in an orderly manner. The more she asked, the more shocked Nangong Wu was. Although Bailey Hongzhuang had read some books, she didn't have a physical reference. How could Bailey Hongzhuang remember so clearly? At this moment, Nangong Wu couldn't help but feel that Bailey Hongzhuang was really too abnormal. Previously when she heard Yu Linfeng say that Bailey Hongzhuang had special attainments in many aspects, although she was surprised, it was far from the shock that Bailey Hongzhuang gave her now. One must know that the time she took to remember these materials was very short. It was precisely because of this that everyone said that she had special attainments in this aspect. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had used even less time than her, but she had remembered more than her. This was simply too much to make people speechless. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang was a genius, the strength that she displayed was too shocking. Nangong Wu only felt that the word genius wasn't enough to describe Bailey Hongzhuang's strength. She was simply a demon. She couldn't understand how Bailey Hongzhuang could remember all of this. Originally, she had intended to introduce these materials to Bailey Hongzhuang so that she could feel some sense of accomplishment. However, at this moment, after facing Bailey Hongzhuang, she didn't feel any sense of accomplishment, only a strong sense of defeat. This was too perverse. Yulin Feng was abnormal, so be it. She never thought that the disciple he found would be so abnormal. Nangong Wu was really speechless at this moment. She really couldn't find any sense of accomplishment. She only felt that she was nothing. If Bailey Hongzhuang had studied explosives for a little longer, her results would have far surpassed hers. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the originally happy Nangong Wu and her expression suddenly changed. Her eyes couldn't help but have a touch of doubt. Chapter 1985. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Nangong Wu in confusion. She didn't understand why Nangong Wu's expression suddenly became dejected in such a short period of time. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's blank expression, Nangong Wu helplessly waved her hand and said, "Nothing. I was just thinking, in such a short period of time, how did you manage to memorize so much content? It's really amazing." Nangong Wu's expression recovered very quickly. In a short period of time, she was once again full of smiles. Although she felt a sense of defeat previously, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's huge improvement, she was very happy in her heart. In this way, her explosive skills would have a successor in the future. After all, she could only improve when she communicated with someone who was better at explosive skills. If Bailey Hongzhuang was really a person who didn't have any talent in explosive skills, then she still wouldn't be interested. Hearing Nangong Wu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly, but in her heart, she felt a little guilty. If she only looked at those few books, she wouldn't be able to make such a judgment. However, who asked her to have such a heaven-defying cheat like the Chaos Ring? Hongzhuang, looking at you, you seem to have memorized most of these materials. Nangong Wu slowly said. She had already asked Bailey Hongzhuang a lot of materials in this area previously, and Bailey Hongzhuang was able to answer her accurately. In this way, they could save a lot of time in this aspect and use it mainly to make explosives. If you have any materials that you don't know, you can ask me. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, indicating that she understood. She knew all the materials in this explosives workshop. This was because the Chaos Ring had more materials. There were even many materials that were not in the explosives workshop, but in the Chaos Ring, there were many materials that were not in the explosives workshop. Mistress, I know most of the materials here. Why don't we make explosives? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with interest. Until now, although she knew most of these materials, she had never made explosives before. After understanding this content, she felt that counting explosives was a very strange skill. According to the middle-aged uncle in the Chaos Ring, when their explosives count reached a certain level, cultivators could make extremely powerful explosives. They could even integrate their own martial arts into the explosives to continuously increase the power of the explosives. Bailey Hongzhuang was very curious about this point. When cultivators were in a battle, they were most worried that they didn't have enough elemental energy and couldn't support it. If they could integrate their martial arts into the explosives beforehand, then it would be no different from others. They would have more elemental energy than others. In this way, their chances of winning would be much higher. Almost at the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang knew that this was an excellent opportunity. If she could master this kind of explosives, then she would undoubtedly have another tyrannical trump card in the future. However, she had not even made the most basic explosives yet. It was undoubtedly extremely difficult to make that kind of explosives. However, as long as there was hope, Bailey Hongzhuang would not give up. She had understood the use of explosives and the identification of materials for so long, so she was very interested in making explosives. Chapter 1986. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to try making explosives by herself after reading a few books, Nan Gongwu couldn't help but be shocked. You want to start making explosives now? In the beginning, when Nan Gongwu was learning explosives, she also had the courage to try it for the first time after understanding all the materials and the process of making explosives. Moreover, when she tried for the first time, she was accompanied by her master. She didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang's courage was even bigger than her. Now she just read a few books and she already dared to start making explosives. However, she liked it. She liked this kind of cultivator who dared to do things. If they were timid and stagnant, they would not be able to achieve excellent results. On the contrary, if they just did what they thought, they might have unexpected results. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Nan Gongwu. Perhaps her current approach was a bit shocking. After all, in the eyes of Nan Gongwu, she just read a few books and now she wanted to make explosives. Perhaps in the eyes of the master's wife, she was a bit too unreliable. However, for the current Bailey Hongzhuang, what she needed most was to save time. Therefore, even now, her actions were somewhat shocking in the eyes of Nan Gongwu, but she still had to do it. Many things were simply unexplainable. Just like in the eyes of many people, she had mastered medical skills, alchemy skills, and inscription techniques. This was something that others could not understand at all. In this case, she didn't mind shocking the world. Some geniuses couldn't be explained by common sense. She believed that when she did it, she didn't need to explain anything anymore. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and said, "Yes, I want to try making it myself." Hearing this, Nan Gongwu smiled and said, "Okay, then you can try it. I will help you watch by the side. If there is any problem, I will stop you at the first time. I won't let any danger happen." Nan Gongwu's expression was full of affection and appreciation. Now she only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was more and more in line with her character. When a beginner made explosives for the first time, there needed to be a veteran to watch by the side because explosives were originally a very dangerous thing. If there was even the slightest deviation, it could lead to an explosion, which could harm him. Regardless of whether Bailey Hongzhuang was full of confidence in herself or just wanted to try it herself, she needed to watch from the side. If Bailey Hongzhuang really had the confidence to make explosives successfully, then she was naturally extremely happy. Because this proved that Bailey Hongzhuang had a strong talent in this area. If Bailey Hongzhuang didn't have confidence, but just couldn't resist the impulse to try it, then she could stop Bailey Hongzhuang to realize that this was not a simple thing, and continue to learn humbly. Seeing that Nan Gongwu didn't doubt her at all, but was very happy to let her start making explosives, Bailey Hongzhuang was also a little surprised. However, after thinking about it carefully, she already understood. The character of her master's wife was different from others. Chapter 1987. After confirming that Bailey Hongzhuang was going to try making explosives by herself, Nan Gongwu stood quietly at the side and watched Bailey Hongzhuang prepare. Bailey Hongzhuang took out the materials needed to make explosives one by one in front of her. Whether it was grinding or baking, Bailey Hongzhuang began to make them one by herself. Although she had not started making explosives under the guidance of the middle-aged uncle in the Chaos Ring, she had seen the middle-aged uncle demonstrate a few times. The middle-aged uncle explained the process of making explosives to her very clearly and she remembered everything clearly in her heart. Originally, if she continued to learn in the chaos world, she could also start making explosives. However, since the mistress had come to look for her, she would try making explosives in the real world first. After returning to the chaos ring at night, she should perform better. After all, the middle-aged uncle this time was extremely powerful. If she failed in making explosives, she would be punished. Therefore, she would try it out in the real world first so that she could avoid physical pain. The three beasts stood quietly at the side. They naturally wanted to help their mistress, but in this situation, it was better to pretend that they did not know anything. Nangong Wu thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would have some problems in the process of making these materials. Thinking back to the first time she made explosives, she had studied explosives for a longer time than Bailey Hongzhuang. When she tried to make explosives for the first time, she had memorized all the steps in her heart. However, when she really tried it out, there were still many mistakes. This was because there was always a difference between imagination and actual operation. However, so far, Bailey Hongzhuang's production had not made any mistakes. Although her movements were much slower than hers, it was already very good that she did not make any mistakes. Practice makes perfect. As long as she did not make any mistakes when making explosives, it was understandable to spend more time. As Bailey Hongzhuang became more and more skilled, the time could be shortened. Bailey Hongzhuang memorized every step and carried it out one by one in an orderly manner. This was also thanks to Bailey Hongzhuang being an alchemist and an inscription master. She had already developed this kind of methodical character when she was learning these things before. No matter what she was doing, she would not be careless. Therefore, even though it was her first time producing, she was not in a hurry. Finally, in the process of slowly mixing the materials, Bailey Hongzhuang was finally able to mix all the materials. Next, it was time for Bailey Hongzhuang to make the explosives. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but close her eyes. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, Nangong Wu's eyes were filled with doubt. She didn't understand what Bailey Hongzhuang was doing all of a sudden. Compared to Nangong Wu's confusion, the three beasties seemed to understand a lot more. They had been by Master's side for so long and had a certain understanding of Master's actions. Right now, Master was sorting out all the contents. She would only choose to make a move after Master had thought it through. This kind of situation would also occur when the Master was refining a higher grade pill. Bailey Hongzhuang closed her eyes and thought about the process of the middle-aged man making explosives. However, the fact that Bailey Hongzhuang could remember everything so clearly and complete it step by step was truly amazing. As time slowly passed, Bailey Hongzhuang's every movement was extremely careful. Finally, under this configuration, Bailey Hongzhuang successfully completed the production of the explosives. When the three beasts saw this scene, their hearts that had been hanging in the air were finally put at ease. After all, the fact that the explosives didn't explode during the process was already a good result. Do you think Master has succeeded? Xiao Hei's eyes sparkled with curiosity. Chapter 1989. She should be able to succeed. Little White pondered for a moment before speaking. However, her tone was still filled with uncertainty. After all, this was Master's first time making explosives. Although it was full of confidence in Master's abilities, it wasn't certain if she would succeed on her first try. Moreover, although it was watching Master's process, it didn't know how to succeed. Master will definitely succeed. Compared to Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai's uncertainty, Baisher was full of confidence in Bailey Hongzhuang. To Baisher, he was full of blind worship and confidence in Bailey Hongzhuang. He believed that as long as Master made a move, she would definitely succeed. Nangong Wu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with admiration. Although she felt that Bailey Hongzhuang might succeed this time, when Bailey Hongzhuang actually succeeded, she still felt an indescribable surprise in her heart. Hongzhuang, I didn't expect you to succeed on your first try. It's really shocking. Nangong Wu's face was full of smiles. She finally understood that Yu Linfeng's disciples' talent far surpassed ordinary cultivators in terms of cultivation and other aspects. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang continued to develop like this, her future would definitely be limitless. At this moment, Nan Gongwu only felt that the Lan family was really unlucky. Although she heard that Lan Qingyan's strength was also very good, in her opinion, Lan Qingyan was nothing compared to Bailey Hongzhuang. If Bailey Hongzhuang had the same cultivation environment as Lan Qingyan since young, then Bailey Hongzhuang's achievements would definitely be much stronger than the younger generation. Unfortunately, the Lan family liked to pick up sesame seeds and throw away watermelons. Not to mention Bailey Hongzhuang, Lan Yunxiao was also much better than his older brother, Lan Jinghuang. If Lan Yunxiao's family didn't have this unforeseen event, then the Lan family's strength would definitely be much stronger than it was now. When she thought of Lan Jinghuang, she felt that he was really a good-for-nothing. For his own fame and status, he could even harm his younger brother's family. He was really shameless to the extreme. She didn't have any good impression of the Lan family. Yu Linfeng had also suffered unfair treatment in the Lan family, which was why he left. Thus, she only hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang could become better and better. When Bailey Hongzhuang was strong enough to appear in front of others again, she also wanted to see how the Lan family's expressions would be. Although all this didn't happen to her, she could empathize with Bailey Hongzhuang. To Bailey Hongzhuang's Bailey Hongzhuang's family's family, Bailey Hongzhuang to Bailey Hongzhuang. With Bailey Hongzhuang's personality, as long as she suffered the slightest grievance, she would definitely repay it in every possible way. It was too difficult for her to act as if nothing had happened. However, since Yu Linfeng wasn't willing to do so, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't want to force him. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance gave her some hope. Since she couldn't avenge Yu Linfeng, then she could avenge Bailey Hongzhuang. With her personality that abhorred evil, she only wanted to let the Lan family taste the consequences of their excessive actions. Hearing Nan Gongwu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but reveal a smile. Chapter 1990. I also didn't expect to succeed. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Although she was only making the simplest type of explosive, but no matter what, there was always an indescribable joy in making it for the first time. Hongzhuang, you are really a genius. Nan Gongwu was not stingy with her praise. Over the years, she had seen many talented people in this area. However, to be able to successfully make explosives in just a few days like Bailey Hongzhuang, other than Bailey Hongzhuang, there was no one else. Listening to Nan Gongwu's praise, Bailey Hongzhuang felt ashamed. She was very clear in her heart that if it wasn't for the guidance of the middle-aged uncle, just relying on those few books was far from enough. However, since the master's wife had already decided, she would not explain anymore. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't speak, Nan Gongwu only thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was embarrassed by her praise. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang's temperament was usually very modest, she was definitely not a playboy. Hongzhuang, since you have successfully made this explosive, why don't we go and test the power of this explosive? Nan Gongwu's eyes were filled with excitement. She had seen Bailey Hongzhuang's process of making the explosive, there was basically no problem. Presumably, the power of the explosive was also not bad. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. In fact, she still had some doubts about the explosive that she made. According to the book that Nan Gongwu gave her, the amount of weight was slightly different from the amount that the middle-aged uncle taught her. She didn't know who was right and who was wrong, but according to her understanding of the Chaos Ring, she felt that the method in the Chaos Ring might have a better effect. After all, her inscription technique was like this. Master's wife, where are we going to check the power of the explosive? Although what she made was only the lowest grade of explosives, but now that they were in Limitless Palace, if she were to directly throw out the explosives, she was afraid that it would cause a group of disciples to be surprised. After all, no one would dare to cause such a huge commotion in Limitless Palace. Those who didn't know would think that someone was attacking Limitless Palace. This kind of thing couldn't be done. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's worried expression, Nangong Wu smiled and said, "With me here, don't tell me there isn't a place to experiment. I often make explosives on a daily basis. In order to make it convenient for me to test the effects of explosives, your master specially prepared a place for me to test the power of explosives." Nangong Wu waved at Bailey Hongzhuang and walked out. Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties followed behind Nangong Wu and walked towards the back of the explosives workshop. Originally, Bailey Hongzhuang thought that the location of the explosives workshop was extremely far back. She never thought that there would be another place behind the explosives workshop. The three beasties' eyes revealed a look of curiosity. They didn't expect that there were so many places in Limitless Palace that they didn't know about. From this, it could be seen that Yu Linfeng really doted on Nangong Wu. He actually prepared so many things for her. Bailey Hongzhuang followed behind Nangong Wu for a distance. Finally, an open space appeared in front of her. Chapter 1991. It was obvious that Nangong Wu often tested the power of the explosives here, which was why this place was in such a mess. Bailey Hongzhuang had just walked to the place where the explosives were tested, and she knew that there was a soundproof array here. No matter how big the commotion was, no sound would leak out. In this way, they could peacefully test the power of the explosives here. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but sigh. Master had really prepared everything for his wife. It's here. Nangong Wu's face was filled with a satisfied and proud smile. I usually test the power of the explosives here. There's an array here that your master specially set up for me, and it has a soundproof effect. In this way, no matter how we test the explosives here, no one will listen. Nangong Wu smiled as she introduced. Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful face was filled with a happy smile. Master is really thoughtful for his wife. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the smile on Nangong Wu's face became even brighter. One of the things that she was most proud of in her life was being able to be together with Yu Linfeng. No matter if it was in the past or now, Yu Linfeng had always been extremely good to her. As a woman, this was her greatest happiness. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Nangong Wu's happy expression, and the smile in her eyes deepened. Speaking of which, Master and his wife were really a pair of lovers that everyone envied. Nangong Wu noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze, and her face couldn't help but turn red. As an elder, she actually said such words in front of the younger generation. She really didn't know shame. Nangong Wu immediately straightened her expression and said, "Let's start now." The three beasties saw Nangong Wu's expression change in an instant, and a smile of understanding appeared on their faces. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally understood as well, but Nangong Wu's true nature was really cute. Sometimes, she felt that such a cute mistress didn't seem like an elder at all, but a peer instead. All right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and immediately walked into the array. Nangong Wu and the three beasties stood outside the array, and Bailey Hongzhuang also retreated after igniting the explosives. This array not only had the effect of isolating sound, it could also prevent the power of the explosives from leaking out. However, the array's range was huge, and with the power of Bailey Hongzhuang's explosives, it was obviously not enough to activate the array. Bang! A huge explosion rang out, and a deep crater quickly appeared on the ground within the array formation. Smoke and dust spread everywhere, blurring everyone's eyes. Looking at the result of the explosions, Bailey Hongzi's eyes, Bailey Zhuang's eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang's, after all, it was her first time making explosives, and to be able to produce such power already made her extremely satisfied. However, Nangong Wu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. The effect of the explosives caused her heart to be filled with doubt and puzzlement. How is this possible? Nan Gongwu looked at the scene in front of her in a daze. Bailey Hongzhuang's first time making was the simplest type of explosives, and she had also made the same type of explosives for the first time in the past. However, the explosives she had made then weren't as strong as Bailey Hongzhuang's, and it was barely half of Bailey Hongzhuang's explosives. Chapter 1992. After the three beasties saw the effect of the explosives made by Bailey Hongzhuang, their hearts couldn't help but be filled with deep joy. I knew it. Based on Master's abilities, there wouldn't be any problems. White Lion puffed out its chest as its eyes filled with pride. It had always believed that its master would be able to complete it. Reality had told it that it was never wrong to believe in its master. Xiao He and Xiao Bai were overjoyed as well. Even though they had been a little worried that their master would not be able to complete it successfully, the joy in their hearts grew even stronger after witnessing this scene. Master is really amazing. She managed to complete it in such a short period of time. Xiao He's heart was filled with excitement. Even though its master had been learning from the middle-aged uncle in the Chaos Ring, this time was still very short. It believed that even if other cultivators received the same treatment as its master, they would still not be able to catch up to its master. That's right. Perhaps Master could personally create such a powerful explosive and turn the Yu family upside down. Once it thought of this, Xiao Bai could not help but feel excited. The Yu family members were extremely detestable. Even if they could not attack the Yu family now, they would be happy to see the Yu family being affected and thrown into chaos when they were rescuing their master's parents. After all, the Yu family had been arrogant for so many years. It was time for them to suffer the consequences of their actions. When Bailey Hongzhuang heard Nan Gongwu's words, her pitch-black almond-shaped eyes could not help but fill with suspicion. She had felt that the power of her explosives was not too bad. Why would Mistress say that? Could it be that there was a problem with the explosives that she had created? Mistress, what's wrong with my explosives? Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but ask. When she heard Bailey Hongzhuang's question, Nan Gongwu did not reply immediately. Instead, she walked into the formation. She had been standing quite far away earlier on and had only seen the power of the explosion from afar. She had not been able to see it clearly. However, when Nan Gongwu walked closer and saw the gigantic crater, her heart could not help but gasp in surprise. She had not seen wrongly. The power of this explosion was much stronger than the simplest explosives. Hongzhuang, how did you make these explosives? Nan Gongwu couldn't help but ask. Previously, she had noticed that the materials Bailey Hongzhuang had prepared were nothing special. They were the most basic materials used for explosives. Moreover, she saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had used the same amount of materials in the first few batches. At that time, she saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was very careful with every step she took, and there was no difference in the amount of food she took. She was relieved and did not continue watching. In her opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang was not only an alchemist but also an inscriptionist. Therefore, she was particularly sensitive to the weight of materials. There would be absolutely no problem. But why was the explosive made by Bailey Hongzhuang stronger than ordinary explosives when they were made of the same material? Nan Gongwu felt as if she had seen an opportunity. In the past, she had only thought that the effects of the most ordinary explosives would be the same. However, after Bailey Hongzhuang had tried it today, she had actually opened up a new world. It was simply too surprising. I made it according to the normal situation. Mistress, is there a problem? Chapter 1993. Previously, she had already noticed that some of the materials mentioned in the book were different from the materials that the middle-aged uncle taught her. After thinking for a moment, she still followed the middle-aged uncle's instructions to make the explosives. After all, she also wanted to know the difference between the method that the middle-aged uncle taught her and the method of making ordinary explosives. Now that she saw her master's wife's reaction, she knew that the difference did exist, and the difference was not small. If not, her master's wife would definitely not reveal such a serious expression. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's puzzled expression, Nan Gongwu was even more puzzled. She felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's process of making explosives must be different from ordinary methods, otherwise the difference in explosives would definitely not be so big. Hongzhuang, the explosives you made are twice as powerful as the most basic explosives. Nan Gongwu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a serious expression. It was clearly the same material, but it had such a different effect. If she knew where the problem was, she would have a better research direction. In the past, she had never been able to find a direction. How could she increase the power of the explosives? This had been troubling her for many years. However, the explosives that Bailey Hongzhuang made today gave her a completely different feeling. It was as if she had discovered a new continent, which made her extremely happy. Following Nan Gongwu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart could not help but be shocked. Although she only thought that there was a difference in the production, she never thought that there would be such a huge difference in the power. Nan Gongwu could not help but walk to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and directly grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. Her bright and beautiful face was filled with anticipation and eagerness. Hongzhuang, tell me in detail, how did you make the explosives just now? Nan Gongwu nervously looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, hoping that Bailey Hongzhuang could still clearly remember the manufacturing process. You have to tell me the steps of your production clearly. Don't leave out anything. Over the past few days, I've been researching how to increase the power of explosives with other explosives masters, but we haven't been able to find a good way. I didn't expect the explosives you made this time to be twice as powerful as ordinary explosives. If we can find out where the problem lies and apply it to a higher level of explosives, then its power will be greatly increased. Nan Gongwu couldn't help but tell Bailey Hongzhuang the importance of this matter. Only in this way would Bailey Hongzhuang think about it carefully. When the three beasties heard Nan Gongwu's words, they were even more surprised. I didn't expect that the first explosive that Master made would have such an amazing effect. It seems that Master is really a genius. I didn't think that the explosives that Master refined would be so powerful. It seems that Master's attainments in the art of explosives will be very shocking in the future. Xiao He couldn't help but sigh. Previously, it didn't think that this was very impressive. However, after hearing Nan Gongwu's words, it completely understood. The things in the Chaos Ring are indeed amazing. It's best for Master to learn from that middle-aged uncle. Xiao Bai slowly said. Chapter 1994. Looking at Nan Gongwu's nervous expression, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately nodded and told Nan Gongwu the entire process. Especially when it came to the subtle differences, Bailey Hongzhuang was even more careful. You said that the ratio of the sky ardent stone powder is 5 grams. With Nan Gongwu's understanding of explosives, she immediately reacted when Bailey Hongzhuang mentioned the slight difference. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I put in 5 grams. Did I put in the wrong amount? Bailey Hongzhuang's face pretended to be confused, as if she really had just remembered wrongly and accidentally put in too much. You should put in 4 grams of sky ardent stone powder. Nan Gongwu curiously looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, only to see Bailey Hongzhuang's puzzled expression. It didn't seem like she was faking it. I always thought it was 5 grams. Bailey Hongzhuang's face revealed a vexed expression, as if she was dissatisfied with herself for remembering wrongly. However, Nan Gongwu was extremely excited. You made a mistake. If you didn't make a mistake by accident, how could we have made such a discovery? Nangong Wu's face was full of smiles. Go on, tell me about the weight of the other materials. In the end, Nangong Wu found that when Bailey Hongzhuang was making the explosives, there was a difference in the amount of two materials that caused such a change. So it's because of the difference in the amount of sky ardent stone powder and sulfate stone powder. Nangong Wu's eyes shone brightly, as if the sky was filled with stars, shining brightly. Hongzhuang, I have to go back and do some research. If I find anything, I'll come to you. Perhaps, whether or not we can successfully make the explosives this time depends on this opportunity. You should go back and cultivate. After saying that, Nangong Wu didn't care about Bailey Hongzhuang behind her. She turned and ran towards the direction of the explosives workshop. She really couldn't wait to try it out. In the past, she only thought about what materials to add to increase the power. She never thought that changing the ratio of materials would cause a difference in power. Now, she only felt that her heart was filled with inspiration and endless possibilities. She had to experiment properly. Looking at Nangong Wu leaving just like that, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. Master's wife's impulsive personality obviously wouldn't change in this lifetime. The three beasts stared blankly as Nangong Wu disappeared from their sight at lightning speed. Their expressions were lifeless and helpless. Master, we now. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Let's go back to the palace. Master's wife won't be coming to find us for a while. I'll take advantage of this time to study more. To Bailey Hongzhuang, she also looked forward to having more time to learn from the middle-aged uncle. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately returned to the bedroom with the three beasts. Then, she immediately entered the chaos ring. She had already learned about the materials and the manufacturing process from the middle-aged uncle. She believed that the middle-aged uncle would start to let her learn how to make explosives. Yu Linfeng didn't know what had happened. Nangong Wu suddenly went into seclusion and stayed in the explosives workshop without sleeping or resting. He had gone to take a look before, but was chased out by Nangong Wu in a flustered and exasperated manner. Seeing this, Yu Linfeng was shocked. He didn't expect to see Nangong Wu in such a state again after so long. Chapter 1995. To the current her, creating powerful explosives was very important. Raising her own strength was also very important. Now that she finally had the chance to rescue her parents, she definitely couldn't just wait by the side. She had to join in the action. Moreover, once she appeared, she believed that her parents would definitely recognize her. After all, when her grandfather first saw her, he was extremely shocked. Presumably, she looked similar to her grandmother. Presumably, she also looked very similar to her mother. In this way, as long as her parents saw her, they would definitely recognize her. If she wanted to rescue two living people like this, it would be very easy for the Yu clan to find out. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had already thought of a way to deal with it. As long as she brought her parents into the chaos ring, it would be much easier for them to leave. Time slowly passed. With each passing day, Bailey Hongzhuang's understanding of explosives was rapidly increasing. Bang! On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang had just come out of the chaos ring when she heard an explosion. Her eyes couldn't help but be filled with astonishment. This explosion was extremely loud and clear. Even the entire limitless palace was shaken by this explosion. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately walked out of the palace and looked towards the direction of the explosion. Smoke and dust filled the air. The unique smell of explosives quickly spread out. Other than Nangong Wu's explosives workshop, where else would there be such a commotion? Master's wife, did you blow up the explosives workshop? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with bewilderment. If Mistress wanted to test the power of the explosives, she could totally go to the testing area at the back. However, The place where the explosion happened was obviously where the explosives workshop was located. Could it be that there was a problem? The three beasties looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. Nangong Wu's actions are a little too frightening, right? Xiao He swallowed a mouthful of saliva. It was already late at night. Most likely, all the cultivators who were resting would have been awakened. This is the rhythm of blowing up the limitless palace. I'm guessing the others are also dumbfounded. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't hesitate to rush in the direction of the explosives workshop. If the master's wife accidentally exploded while making the explosives, it would be terrible. Just by looking at the commotion, one could tell how powerful the explosives were. If they had accidentally exploded, then Mistress would not have been able to leave in time. As Bailey Hongzhuang quickly left, the three beasts followed closely behind Bailey Hongzhuang and flew forward. While Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties were rushing over, there was another figure who was even faster than them. That was Yulin Feng. Nangong Wu had stayed in the explosives workshop for so many days. Although Yulin Feng felt helpless, he knew that if he disturbed Nangong Wu at this time, Nangong Wu would definitely be unhappy. However, he never thought that such an unforeseen event would occur. Not only that, the power of the explosives this time was much stronger than any of the explosives that Nangong Wu had tested in the past. If there was any danger, Yulin Feng couldn't imagine what would happen. However, when Yulin Feng arrived at the explosives workshop, the scene he saw filled him with helplessness. Bailey Hongzhuang followed closely behind Yulin Feng. However, when she saw the scene in front of her, her feelings were no different from Yulin Feng's. Chapter 1996. Ha ha ha, I've finally made such a powerful explosive. Nangong Wu's face was charred black. The smoke and dust had already covered her face, but it couldn't cover her excitement. I never thought that I, Nangong Wu, would actually be able to make such a powerful explosive. I'm really excited, ha ha ha. Nangong Wu laughed as she sighed. Even though her face was covered with dust, her eyes were unprecedentedly bright. Nangong Wu saw Yulin Feng and Bailey Hongzhuang and quickly rushed over. She smiled and said, Lin Feng, Hongzhuang, I've succeeded. I've finally succeeded. Yulin Feng didn't care about Nangong Wu's happiness. After carefully inspecting Nangong Wu's body, he finally relaxed after discovering that there weren't any injuries on her body. I'm not injured, don't worry. Nangong Wu said. Hearing this, Yulin Feng felt even more helpless. With such a mischievous wife, he was also extremely helpless. Hongzhuang, what do you think about the power of my explosive? It should be able to cause quite a commotion in the Yu clan, right? Nangong Wu said excitedly. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Nangong Wu, who was dancing with joy in front of her. At the same time, she was also a little touched. At this kind of time, Mistress was still thinking about how to cause a commotion in the Yu clan. This commotion is very big. All the disciples of Limitless Palace have been awakened by this commotion. Bailey Hongzhuang said. Previously, when she was rushing to the explosives workshop, she saw the disciples of the various palaces walking out of their sleeping quarters one after another. They looked at the direction of the explosives workshop in puzzlement, discussing spiritedly. However, at that time, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't care about what these cultivators were talking about. She immediately rushed over. All the disciples of Limitless Palace have been awakened by me. Nangong Wu raised her eyebrows in excitement. If that's the case, then this power is pretty good. Ha ha ha. Yulin Feng grabbed Nangong Wu. Even though he couldn't see Nangong Wu's face clearly, he knew that Nangong Wu hadn't had a good rest for so many days. She must be exhausted. Alright, alright. Now that you've made the explosives to your heart's content, you can finally go back and have a good rest. I'll have to inform the elders later. Many of the disciples think that Youqi's sect has come to attack. Yu Linfeng's elegant face was filled with helplessness and indulgence. He really didn't know what to do with Nan Gongwu. Hong Zhuang, I have something to tell you. Nan Gongwu, on the other hand, was unable to contain her excitement. It's all thanks to your discovery that day that I was able to create such a powerful explosive. Nan Gongwu pulled Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. She was really grateful to Bailey Hongzhuang for allowing her to have a better understanding of explosives. However, without waiting for Nan Gongwu to finish speaking, Yu Linfeng had already knocked Nan Gongwu unconscious. When Nan Gongwu collapsed, Yu Linfeng immediately carried Nan Gongwu up. Your master's wife is too tired these days. Let her sleep for a while. After she wakes up, you two can have a good chat. He and Nan Gongwu had been together for such a long time. He understood Nan Gongwu's temperament very well. If she were to continue like this, it wouldn't take long for her to fall into a coma. The damage to her body would be extremely great. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Let's let master's wife have a good rest. Chapter 1997. Bailey Hongzhuang followed her back to her bedroom. She felt that Nan Gongwu was indeed a genius in the field of explosives. She had only given Nan Gongwu a direction, but Nan Gongwu was able to create such powerful explosives so quickly. It was really amazing. Xiao He, Xiao Bai Shi, do you think that mistress's explosives are powerful enough? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the three beasts in front of her and asked. It should be enough. At most, we can throw a few more. This has even shocked Limitless Palace. If we throw a few more, the Yu clan would definitely be shocked. Xiao He said after thinking. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I also feel that the explosives are very powerful. It should be enough. Thinking until here, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but feel excited. After waiting for so long, she finally had the chance to rescue her parents. Not only that, she also had some ideas about how to create explosives. The chaos ring was really too human-like. After she tried to communicate with the middle-aged uncle, he actually agreed to teach her how to create an extremely powerful explosive. She had not created it yet. However, after she created it, she would throw a few at the Yu clan and collect the interest first. That means that we can go to the Yu clan very soon. Bai Shi said excitedly. Now that things had come to this, he was really happy for his master. Following Bai Shi's words, Xiao He and Xiao Bai's eyes lit up. They had prepared for so long, wasn't it all for this? Yes. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. When mistress wakes up, she will definitely start creating the explosives. Once everything is done, we can set off. After Yu Linfeng sent Nan Gongwu back to her bedroom, he told the various palace masters about the cause of the commotion. The power of the explosion just now was not small. The disciples were all in a state of panic, so he had to calm them down first. When the disciples of Limitless Palace found out what had happened, they too came to a realization. After all, they had long heard that the mistress liked to create explosives. The mistress is really powerful. The movement of the explosives is actually so big. This is the first time I've seen such powerful explosives. It's far beyond my knowledge. Since there are no enemies attacking, we can go back and rest in peace. After the disciples sighed, they all returned to their own houses. However, they felt that Nan Gongwu was even more powerful. Although the palace master was a genius, the mistress was also not to be trifled with. After Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the palace, she began to learn how to make explosives from the middle-aged uncle. The master's wife's explosives had already been successfully made, so it was time for her to start making explosives. To prepare to create a commotion in the Yu clan. When the time came, Nangongwu hadn't rested for many days. She was just relying on her excitement to support herself. Now that he had fallen into a deep sleep, he only felt that his entire body was exhausted to the extreme. His tensed mind had also completely relaxed. This sleep lasted for 7 days. In these 7 days, Bailey Hongzhuang had also mastered how to create the explosives. However, the materials in the chaos ring were all virtual. She could not use them in real life. Chapter 1998. Regarding this, Bailey Hongzhuang was not in a hurry. With Mistress's rich inventory, it should not be difficult to gather these materials. However, what she needed most now was to wait for Mistress to wake up. When Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating in the heaven stairway, she finally heard Nangongwu's voice. "Hongzhuang, are you there?" Nangongwu's excited voice was like the sound of nature in Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately stood up and walked out of the heaven stairway. As expected, Nangongwu was standing outside the palace with a smile on her face. Compared to the haggard and miserable appearance 7 days ago, the Nangongwu today was obviously full of energy and vigor. "Mistress, have you rested well?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a smile. Nangongwu smiled and nodded. "Of course, I didn't think that I would be able to sleep for so long." "I think you must have been waiting anxiously, right?" "No." Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and said. "I already know how to make such a powerful explosive. Lin Feng is helping me to prepare the materials. I will start making it in a while. After I have finished making it, you can set off to the Yu clan." Nangongwu couldn't hide the excitement on her face. Although this matter didn't happen to her, she still regarded Bailey Hongzhuang as her own disciple. Being able to help her disciple solve such a huge problem was naturally something she was happy to see. "Then I will have to trouble Mistress." Bailey Hongzhuang did not decline. For the current situation, this was indeed very important. Nangongwu waved her hand. "What's so difficult about this?" "Mistress, I still have one more thing to ask for your help," Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Hearing this, Nangongwu raised her eyebrows and patted her chest. "Say it, no matter what it is, as long as I can do it, I will definitely help you. I also want to make explosives. I hope that Mistress can provide some materials." Right now, she really did not have any materials at all. Even the cleverest housewife could not cook a meal without rice. This kind of small matter, no problem. Nangongwu thought it was something important, so it was just this. "Then come with me to the explosives workshop, we will make the explosives together in a while. I can't watch you today, you must be careful when you make the explosives." From Nangongwu's point, Bailey Hongzhuang's hands was itching to make the explosives after the first time. This was very normal, many beginners would have this kind of thoughts. "Thank you, Mistress." Anne. Hongzhuang and Nangongwu immediately walked towards the direction of the explosives workshop. And when Bailey Hongzhuang came to the explosives workshop again, her eyes were filled with a touch of emotion. A few days ago, Mistress had just razed this place to the ground, and now a brand new explosives workshop had appeared again. Not only that, the things inside were still complete. Chapter 1999. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but feel touched. She didn't think that her master and master's wife would actually prepare so well for her. Previously, when you were making explosives for the first time, I had already told Lin Feng about this idea. Nangongwu's face was full of smiles. "Your talent in explosives is so high. In the future, your attainments in this area will definitely surpass mine. If there isn't a place that specializes in making explosives, it would be too inconvenient. Moreover, this place is very close to the place where the explosives are tested, so it couldn't be more convenient. Furthermore, in the future, we can discuss how to make explosives together. This is simply something that I have always dreamt of. I'm really too happy. Nan Gongwu's face was filled with excitement. In the past, there was no one to accompany her. Now, she had finally achieved her goal. Master's wife, thank you. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with gratitude and sincerity. You and Master are really good to me. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but rejoice. If she didn't participate in the examination competition, then she wouldn't have been able to become Yu Linfeng's disciple. She also wouldn't have met Nan Gongwu. Naturally, she wouldn't have everything that she had now. Master and Master's wife were so concerned about her, thinking about her in every way. First, they specially made a bedroom for her. Now, they even prepared an explosives workshop for her. When Nan Gongwu saw Bailey Hongzhuang's moved expression, her heart also softened. Lin Feng and I don't have any relatives in this world. You are just like our daughter. With your arrival, we also feel very happy. Let's make the explosives first. The most important thing now is to complete the explosives. Then, we can go to the Yu clan. Nan Gongwu was obviously not used to this kind of emotional scene. Thus, after saying a few words, she changed the topic. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally understood Nan Gongwu's character. She immediately smiled and nodded, saying, "All right." As soon as she got close to the explosives workshop, Nan Gongwu's face immediately turned serious. After telling Bailey Hongzhuang to be more careful when making the explosives, she began to make the explosives herself. The last time, not long after she successfully made the explosives, she had fainted. However, she still remembered the process of making the explosives clearly. Now, she needed to make a few sets of explosives, but at that time, everything here had been blown to smithereens, so she needed time to think about it. Seeing that Nan Gongwu let her make her own explosives, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't ask for more. She was originally worried that Nan Gongwu would watch her make it. This set of explosives was her gift to the Yu clan. This time, when she went to the Yu clan, she wanted to give them a gift first. Teat leave, S. S uses STT caused TS caused teat STTS. The Yu clan must have approved of Yu Siqing's plan. If the Yu clan didn't help, Yu Siqing and Yu Manlan wouldn't have been able to do this. This was the plan of the entire Yu clan. Aristocratic families had always been unscrupulous in order to achieve their goals. Chapter 2000. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang's target was not only Yu Siqing and Yu Manlan, but also the entire Yu clan. However, the future was long, and she had plenty of opportunities. She believed that this day would not be too far away. The Yu clan would definitely suffer the consequences of their own actions. At least, from the day she transmigrated into Bailey Hongzhuang, the Yu clan was already destined to suffer the consequences. For a time, Bailey Hongzhuang and Nan Gongwu were both diligently making the explosives. Bailey Hongzhuang had already tried to make this kind of explosive many times when she was in the Chaos Ring. Because this kind of explosive was not ordinary, the difficulty of making it was much higher. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was still full of confidence. The three beasts quietly stayed at the side. This kind of environment was not to be disturbed. Bailey Hongzhuang and Nan Gongwu put all their thoughts on making the explosives. At this time, time passed by abnormally fast. After a period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang finally stopped. Her elegant and charming face was surrounded by a confident and dazzling radiance, and her pair of shining eyes were filled with a sharp light. She had already successfully made the explosives. She was looking forward to the effect it would cause in the Yu clan. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had finished making the explosives, the three beasts looked at each other, and a hint of excitement appeared in their eyes. They would be able to take action very soon. Thinking about it, this was really something to look forward to. After Bailey Hongzhuang finished, she saw that Nangong Wu was still immersed in making the explosives. She quietly stood at the side and watched Nangong Wu make the explosives without disturbing her. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw the process and steps of Nangong Wu making the explosives, her eyes could not help but be filled with a hint of amazement. She had also seen the middle-aged uncle make explosives in the Chaos Ring, but the level of the explosives was also not low, so she had never made one before. She didn't expect that Nangong Wu would be able to do this after she told Nangong Wu some problems a few days ago. It could be seen that Nangong Wu was very good at this. Bailey Hongzhuang secretly decided that once she learned more useful knowledge about explosives, she would definitely tell Nangong Wu. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was quietly waiting for Nangong Wu to finish, suddenly, there was a sound of footsteps outside the door. Hearing the footsteps, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but raise her eyebrows and walk out of the room. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw the three people standing outside the scissors house, her eyes couldn't help but emit a warm light. These three people were Yulin Feng, Di Beichen, and Situ Yen. "Grandfather, why are you here?" Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Situ Yen in astonishment. She didn't expect her grandfather to personally come to Limitless Palace. It was really out of her expectations. When Situ Yen saw Bailey Hongzhuang, his face revealed a smile. "Since such a big thing happened, I naturally have to come." Ever since Situ Yen found out about this news, he kept thinking about how to save them. There was no doubt that he would be able to save Mu Lingbing and the other person. If he couldn't think of a way, Situ Yen didn't mind directly killing them. Even if there might be some consequences, Situ Yen couldn't care less. It was obviously too late to make a detailed plan, but since they already knew where Mu Lingbing and the other person were, they couldn't let this matter continue to develop. Chapter 2001. Listening to Si Tuyen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. She had always known that her grandfather was very worried about her parents' situation. It was precisely because of this that Di Beichen had already gone back to inform her grandfather the moment they heard the news. When Yulin Feng heard Bailey Hongzhuang addressing Si Tuyen as grandfather, he sighed in his heart. He had never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and Si Tuyen would have such a relationship. When Hongzhuang told them the news previously, they were already very shocked. At this moment, after seeing Hongzhuang and Si Tuyen with their own eyes, he was even more amazed in his heart. Perhaps, all of this was destined by the heavens. Originally, he was still worried that Hongzhuang would want to take revenge. She had to deal with the Lan family and the Yu family at the same time. This was not an easy task. However, now that Tian Gang's sect had joined the alliance, this matter had become much simpler. Even if it was Si Tuyen, he could not just watch his daughter and son-in-law being bullied like this and not care about it. Just from the fact that Si Tuyen came to Limitless Palace after hearing the news, it could be seen how much importance Si Tuyen attached to this matter. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen also revealed a smile on his face. Master's wife has already made a more powerful explosive. It's now in the process of making it. When it's done, we can see how effective it is. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was filled with a bright smile. She believed that her grandfather and Di Beichen would be very happy after hearing the news. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen and Si Tuyen's faces revealed a smile as expected. "We have already heard about this matter from Palace Master Yu on the way here. I didn't expect Palace Master's wife to have such deep attainments in this aspect. It's really amazing," Di Beichen said with a smile. Originally, he was still worried that if he could not make the explosive successfully, then this trip would be full of difficulties. However, he didn't expect that the palace mistress would be able to successfully make the explosives in such a short period of time after he left Limitless Palace. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Am's talent in this area is far beyond ordinary people. Palace Master Yu, it's all thanks to you and your wife. Situ Yen turned around and saw Yu Linfeng. His words were filled with gratitude. With regards to Jade Forest Mountain, Situ Yen was similarly filled with emotions. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had already told him about Yu Linfeng. He had never thought that Yu Linfeng was also a member of the Lan family. In the past, he didn't feel much about the Lan family because they didn't have much contact with each other. However, now that he knew everything, he really felt that the Lan clan was extremely stupid. If Yu Linfeng was still a member of the Lan clan, then the Lan clan's strength would definitely be much stronger than it was now. Many people were guessing Yu Linfeng's true identity because Yu Linfeng seemed to have appeared out of thin air. No one knew which force he came from. If others knew that Yu Linfeng only had his current achievements after being forced to leave the Lan clan, they would definitely be shocked. Hearing Situ Yan's words, Yu Linfeng's elegant face was filled with a faint smile. Sect Master Situ, you're too polite. Chapter 2002. Hearing Yu Linfeng's words, the smile on Situ Yan's face widened. It's Hongzhuang's blessing that Palace Master Yu is willing to accept Hongzhuang as her disciple. Saying that, Situ Yan and Yu Linfeng looked at each other and smiled. They were extremely satisfied with Hongzhuang. At this time, there was no need to say anything else. Then let's wait here for a while. After Wu is done making the explosives, we'll see how powerful they are. Hearing Yu Linfeng's words, Situ Yan and the others nodded. They were already very glad to be able to hear the good news as soon as they arrived at Limitless Palace. He believed that since Palace Master Yu said so, there should be no problem with the power of the explosives. Originally, they were still worried about what to do if the explosives were not successfully made. Now, it seemed that all of their problems could be solved. At this moment, Di Beichen and Situ Yan's hearts relaxed a little. Since things had developed to this point, they would be able to take action very soon. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were talking, Nangong Wu had already finished making the explosives. Although Nangong Wu was making the explosives in the explosives workshop, she had heard the conversation outside. Therefore, at this moment, she walked out as soon as she finished making the explosives. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others immediately focused their gaze on Nangong Wu. Nangong Wu's face also revealed a smile. Sect Master Situ. Nangong Wu said. Hearing that, Situ Yen smiled faintly. Palace Master's wife, I've troubled you with this matter. We're all family, why are you being so polite? Nangong Wu obviously did not care about the formalities as she spoke so familiarly. Looking at Nangong Wu's friendliness, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others revealed a smile on their faces. After spending so much time with Nangong Wu, they already understood Nangong Wu's character. Situ Yen did not find it strange as well. After all, Nangong Wu's character was well known in the world of sections. However, from Situ Yan's point of view, Nangong Wu's character was also genuine. Compared to some hypocrites, Nangong Wu's character was undoubtedly more admirable. I've already made the explosives. Why don't we go to the back and see the effects of the explosives? Nangong Wu's face was filled with excitement. Usually, when she was researching explosives, others would think that she was not doing her job properly. She did not expect that the explosives would have such an effect. She was really happy. When she thought that everyone would want to see the results of her work, she felt a sense of pride. After all, people's hard work should work hard. Following Nangong Wu's words, Situ Yen and the others looked at each other and revealed an interested expression. In fact, to cultivators in the world of cultivation, they always felt that the power of the explosives could not reach a certain level. However, since Palace Master Yu and Nangong Wu were so confident, Situ Yen also wanted to see the power of the explosives. Di Beichen was also curious. The last time he left, he did not gain anything from Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Now that they were so happy, they must have gained a lot. Soon, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived at the location where they were testing the power of the explosives. Nangong Wu immediately ignited the explosives and threw them into the formation. Chapter 2003. Everyone's eyes fell on the explosive. They were really curious about the power of this explosive. Bang! A loud explosion rang out. Smoke and dust filled the sky, and the whole ground shook from the explosion. The yellow sand in front of them blocked their line of sight. However, with the protection of the array, the power did not spread out. Because Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were very close to the location of the array, they could still clearly feel all of this. When Situ Yen and Di Beichen noticed the movement, their eyes could not help but be filled with amazement. They did not expect the power of this explosive to be so powerful. It was far beyond their imagination. If a few of such powerful explosives were thrown in the Yu clan, the Yu clan would definitely be in a panic. After seeing the power of this explosive, Nangong Wu could not help but smile. Her clear eyes were filled with pride. This was her proudest explosive ever since she started developing explosives. This level of power was much stronger than the ones she had made in the past. Usually, Yu Linfeng was non-committal when it came to her making explosives. Although he had specially made an explosives workshop for her, from Yu Linfeng's attitude, it could be seen that he did not want her to waste too much time in this area. However, after she made such a powerful explosive last time, Yu Linfeng's attitude changed. This was what made her the happiest. Palace Mistress is really amazing. You can actually make such an explosive. This old man has never seen it before. Situ Yen praised without hesitation. This kind of power was really eye-opening. Di Beichen's eyes were also filled with joy. With this explosive, their problem would be solved. The power of this kind of explosive is really eye-opening. Di Beichen also exclaimed in admiration. Listening to everyone's praise, the smile on Nangong Wu's face became more and more brilliant. She had never heard anyone praise her in the field of explosives. Today, she was really happy. As long as I can help Hongzhuang, I am the happiest. Nangong Wu said with a smile. Thank you for everything you've done for me. Bailey Hongzhuang bowed to Nangong Wu, her eyes full of sincerity and gratitude. In a short period of time, Situ Yen and Yu Linfeng quickly became familiar with each other. This was because they all had the same person they wanted to treat well. This person was Bailey Hongzhuang. Just this little bit of connection was enough. During lunch, Situ Yen and the others had been discussing how to carry out the rescue plan. In the end, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen decided to let them meet up with the people from Shitian Pavilion. Although Situ Yen was powerful, his whereabouts had always been noticed by many people. Therefore, they decided to have Situ Yen wait at a place not far from them. If there was a problem, it would not be too late for Situ Yen to take action. If there were no problems, they would be able to solve everything on their own. Nangong Wu and Yu Linfeng originally planned to go, but in the end, Situ Yen dissuaded them. The Yu clan was a very sensitive clan. If many people suddenly rushed into the city, they would definitely notice. Therefore, the fewer people they sent, the better. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.